and welcome to the Lost Media Chronicles, a show which covers various lost movies, music, arts, you name it. I'm Trey, returning once again to expand on a subject I covered before. When I was asked 2 years ago to do an LMC, I chose Thomas the Tank Engine as my subject matter. I was floored at the amount of Lost Thomas media, and opted to pick only 2 topics: a failed attempt at a TV series, and a cancelled volume of the Railway series books. There was one area of Lost Thomas media I didn't go over that had people asking why it wasn't included. Randy and I discussed touching upon it at the time, but agreed it was substantial enough that it warranted its own episode. And now the time has come. So, dust off your old conductor's whistles and get ready to sparkle, sparkle, sparkle! This is the story of Thomas and the Magic Railroad. In 1995, the TV series Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends had been airing for 11 years. Thomas was recognized and adored by children all over the world, and it seemed like nothing could derail his popularity. The show's creator, Britt Allcroft, was approached by Barry London, the vice chairman of Paramount Pictures. London's 3-year-old daughter was one of Thomas's many fans, and London expressed interest in bringing Thomas to the big screen. Allcroft was eager to make this happen. She signed a contract deal with Paramount in February of '96 and started writing the story. Allcroft knew she wanted to use the movie to show audiences more of Thomas's home, the island of Sodor. Another idea she had early on was to merge together Sodor and Shining Time, the other world she'd created for Shining Time Station. The two worlds would be connected by a magic railroad, which is where the title Thomas and the Magic Railroad originated. Unfortunately, London parted ways with Paramount in late '96, and the project was shelved indefinitely. Allcroft never gave up hope on the movie, even planning to fund it herself, but the next development wouldn't come for another 2 years. In the summer of 1998, Allcroft heard that the Isle of Man was offering tax incentives to filmmakers. After visiting the islands, she found herself inspired and decided that would be the place to film the movie. In February of 1999, financing for the film was secured by Destination Films, the production company that London had moved to, and by Allcroft's own company, Ghislaine Entertainment. Allcroft finished a production draft of the script in May, and in July, casting began. Alec Baldwin would play Mr. Conductor, a role made popular on Shining Time by Ringo Starr and George Carlin. Peter Fonda would play Burnett Stone, a depressed Shining Time resident who lives in the mountains. Mara Wilson, the child actor best known for playing the title role in Matilda, would play Lily, Burnett Stone's granddaughter. The voice of Thomas would be provided by John Bellis, an Isle of Man resident and part-time taxi driver. Allcroft and a few members of the crew were picked up by Bellis at the airport when they arrived to begin production. Allcroft confided in the crew members after the ride that Bellis's voice was perfect for Thomas. She approached Bellis with the offer, and he happily agreed. Canadian actor Doug Lennox, who is now best known as Albert the Bartender in the X-Men movie, would play P.T. Boomer, a menacing motorcyclist and adversary of Stone. Australian voice actor Keith Scott, now known as the voice of Bullwinkle in the live-action Rocky and Bullwinkle movie, was also on board to voice Diesel 10, the engine villain driven by Boomer. Additionally, the Thomas show's British narrator, Michael Angelis, was on hand to voice James and Percy. With the key cast assembled, production began in August, with a release date for the following July. Production went smoothly and wrapped in December of '99. Everyone was proud of what they'd made, but one forthcoming event would determine the movie's fate. In late March of 2000, a test audience of kids ages 5 and 6 was assembled at an LA shopping mall for a preview screening of Magic Railroad. The executive judges monitoring the audience reaction demanded Allcroft to make drastic cuts to the film. These cuts compromised a large portion of the story she'd written and eliminated some of the actors from their roles. Lennox received the call from the studio that his character of Boomer was cut from the movie entirely on the grounds that the character was too frightening to children. On the same note, Scott's role of Diesel 10 was recast, as the execs thought his Russian accent was too scary. Bellis as Thomas and Angelis as James and Percy were also recast, as the execs felt they sounded too old and too British to be voicing their respective characters. That's right, too British was actually a comment that those executives made. Thomas, a character that originated in Britain, is too British. Can you imagine an executive saying that? It's just...
Disgraceful, said Gordon. Disgusting, put in James. Despicable, finished Henry.
Another thing to consider is the speculation that the kids at the screening were irritable because of the heat, and not a very good audience to be gauging reactions from. When you consider that possibility, the story becomes even sadder. I mean, put yourself in Britt Allcroft's shoes for a second, and think about this. You've just made a movie you're proud of, your Citizen Kane, if you will. And all of a sudden, with one bad screening, your entire vision is shattered.
Allcroft had the most to lose from the cuts.
The theatrical cut may have satisfied the executives, but it didn't satisfy people who spent countless hours working passionately on the movie. It bombed, and critics had nothing nice to say about it.
Thomas and the Magic Railroad seems so unsure of itself. Both Fonda and Baldwin seem stranded here in a world that never really becomes charming or magical or certainly even convincing.
Because the movie did so badly, the blame fell on Allcroft. She made the decision to step down as executive producer of The Thomas Show in 2003, ending her nearly 20-year relationship with the Little Blue Train. Allcroft has been as vocal as Thomas's fans in making efforts to release a Magic Railroad director's cut. Since she has no copy of the work print in her possession, that's up to Destination Films, now owned by Sony, who expressed no interest in cooperating to release the cut. Seeing where Sony's priorities are now, it's doubtful they're going to release it anytime soon.
Over the years, we've been very fortunate to find a lot of missing material from the film.
Deleted scenes or elements of them have been found in pictures from the set, as well as a making-of documentary that was included in the German DVD release, and early versions of trailers. The most surprising of all the finds is the full original chase sequence from the film's climax, which featured the P.T. Boomer character riding on top of Diesel 10. This clip was uploaded to YouTube by a student at the Harris Institute in Toronto, Canada. One of the professors there had only the one clip in his possession, and used it for educational purposes. At first, all we had was the clip dubbed over with loud music, so we were unable to hear the characters. After the death of Doug Lennox in November 2015, the clip was uploaded with all voices intact, allowing us to hear not only Lennox as Boomer, but also Bellis voicing Thomas, and Scott voicing Diesel 10.
But why is it so important that the director's cut be released?
Well, for one thing, with the director's cuts, Allcroft's vision would become a reality. The best way to explain the importance of that is to tell you about my Magic Railroad experience. I was 11 years old when the movie was released. I remember the excitement of seeing it in the theaters, and the disappointments afterwards. I couldn't explain what it was, but even at that age, I knew something was off, and was not impressed with the movie. I remained a fan of Thomas, but noticed that the show was going downhill around that time. I preferred to rewatch the old episodes than see the new ones. It was a few years later that I started doing my own research, and realized there was a reason why the new episodes, and the movie, weren't up to the same quality as the episodes I grew up with.
The drop in quality started with the death of Wilbert Audrey in 1997.
Audrey, as the creator of Thomas, was the most powerful force in deciding the direction the show would go. It was in his contract that the televised stories had to be written in book form first. With his passing, though, executive meddling became frequent. It was decided that a team of writers would be hired for the show instead of having basis on Audrey's books. His stories were a large part of what was great about the show, so when it deviated from Audrey's writing, the difference was glaring. One saving grace that remained with the show after Audrey, though, was Allcroft. She showed heart and passion for Audrey's vision, and understood the importance of seeing it realized. It's ironic that when the time came to make a movie with a vision of her own, it was ruined by executives. By the time they were satisfied with the film, it was no longer the movie Allcroft had set out to make. Years ago, I acquired a copy of the production script Allcroft wrote. It's been too long ago to remember the differences between it and the film, but I remember thinking as I read the script, yes, this is what the movie should have been like. The writing was better, with no plot holes, which were rampant in the movie. The characters were more fleshed out. I even found myself geeking out as I read that more characters from the show were originally supposed to make appearances, but for whatever reason, were also written out.
There have been numerous efforts to have the director's cut released.
The director's cut would be for the benefit of the fans, but it would also redeem Allcroft's reputation. As a fan, I'd love to see that, and have signed numerous petitions to make it happen. Will it ever? Well, stranger things have happened, so we can only hope.
And that about does it for this episode. Join somebody next time for some subject matter. See you later.